Welcome to Arts and Color's first video interview. I'm very excited. Today we have Harrison Rivers, a renowned playwright who's originally from Kansas, went to school in Ohio, and then did his graduate degree at Columbia University here in New York City. While here in New York, he's won a GLAAD Media Award and a Fringe Award as well, and done countless fellowships and worked at theaters like The Public, Second Stage, Lincoln Center. I mean, the list goes on and on. So we're really excited to have him today. So keep watching the video and let's see what he has to say. Hi, how are you? I haven't seen you in so long.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
I wasn't really a writer in undergrad. I designed costumes and I acted and I directed. I did like all of this stuff and I had not really made a decision as to what I wanted to be. So I moved to San Francisco because I had spent summers there with my dear friend Abby, and it was a place that I thought was beautiful and sort of a little bit slower, and I thought it would give me the chance to sort of get my bearings and figure out who I am and what do I want and how I'm going to use what I just learned. And basically I went out to San Francisco and was fairly lonely until then a whole bunch of my friends started moving out, but my first year there I was pretty lonely. And so I started writing, and I wrote my first full-length play, really, when I was out in San Francisco. And then I applied to grad schools, and I ended up coming to Columbia. Once I just sort of decided that I wanted to challenge myself and not only move to a big, busy, crazy city, but I thought, I don't really know how to be a playwright, so I'll move to New York, I'll go to Columbia, and I will figure out how to be a playwright and what that means for me. So it was a challenge. It was like a personal challenge to move to New York and do this. And I sometimes marvel at the fact that I'm still writing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my friends who I was in grad school with or went to undergrad with aren't still doing what we all loved doing at the time. And I think that people have found other things that they're just as passionate, if not more passionate about.
Right.
But this theater thing, this writing thing has stayed constant for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I don't know what grad school was like for you.
With writing, I feel like I just spent a lot of time writing, and then I brought in stuff, and we talked about it, and then I left. So it was actually a lot of me time, and I don't know. I think it just gave me the time that I needed to figure out what I wanted to write about and how I wanted to write it.
Yeah.
And Columbia has a lot of red tape.
Yeah.
So I also feel like it sort of prepared me for rejection and for like the difficulty of getting in the door.
Right.
So that's never been something that's daunted me in New York City. It's sort of like, well, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
That's how it was in grad school. So.
Right. Do you remember when you stepped off the plane and you were like, I am in New York City?
I mean, I think I was sort of a deer in headlights for a good long time.
Yeah.
A good long time. I don't know. I don't even know like when that moment is where you feel like you finally belong. I think it just happens one day while you're riding the subway, and suddenly you're like, oh yeah, I know how to get there if like the train's not working. Like I have an alternate and a second alternate route.
Yeah.
And where you just sort of, your body just sort of says, okay. I mean, I don't know that the transition was too hard. San Francisco, I mean, is a city. So the city life was not new. I think I had my big shell shock moment like when I graduated from graduate school. It was sort of like, how do you take what you learned in graduate school and make a career out of it?
Right.
Do I need to get I need to get a job. Okay, so I should get a job, and then I'm writing after hours, and then can I really get things done doing it that way? And then I'm going to apply for this, and I'm not getting it, and I don't know. I feel like the crisis moment for me came like that year after graduate school, where I was sort of like, can I actually do this?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look like I'm doing it, really. And it doesn't really feel like I'm doing it. It feels like I'm working a 9 to 5 and writing for fun. And that's awesome. And I love that. But that's not really, I don't think, what anybody comes to New York to do.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
So I think that's when I had my big, like, I'm in New York, and I think I'm a writer.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm not doing that. Maybe I'm not a writer. I mean, I definitely had that sort of crisis.
Well, a lot of people who move here to do something in the arts really wonder, okay, so how do I find this balance? Because unfortunately, it's not like you graduate with your MBA and there's recruiting and you're going to get that job right after graduation. Mm-hmm. So how did you find the balance? Like, do you have a day job currently, or how did you figure that out?
Yeah, so I, in my last year of grad school, when we were supposed to be writing our thesis plays, mm-hmm. I felt like I was spending so much time thinking about writing and obsessing about writing, and I needed something to balance that with. So I got a job at the Lower East Side Tenement Museum, and actually I was an American Studies major in undergrad, so it sort of spoke to a separate side of me. Mm-hmm. So from 9 to 5, I was able to sort of do that, think about those things, not think about my writing. And it really allowed me to set up a writing schedule, which meant getting up 2 hours earlier in the morning, writing before work, and then editing after work. Mm-hmm. And I still sort of keep that schedule. Mm-hmm. It works for me. It was hard at first, but I think now I'm sort of used to it. Uh-huh. And I would love to sort of work toward working less formally and writing more during the hours in which I'm actually awake and functioning at 100%. Yeah. But I do love my day job, and I think that without the day job, I would not have been as disciplined as I've been over the years. Mm-hmm. And I think that my output has been quite good, considering that I don't have the luxury to write as often or as much or at my own sort of leisure. Right. So I feel good about the job part. Mm-hmm. Who has been supportive of your decision to say, all right, I'm going to pursue something that's art related and I'm going with it? Yeah. My family has been incredibly supportive. Mm-hmm. I think it took some members of my family a little while to understand exactly what I was doing. Right. And to sort of, they had a difficult time, I think, sometimes seeing what I was doing as actual work. Sure. And so then it became very difficult to sort of quantify. Like, if you're doing work, Harrison, if you're actually doing work, then, like, what is the result of that work? Right. And which I completely understood. Mm-hmm. And I feel like just now I'm starting to see some of the fruits of the labor, which is, I think, exciting them. But I think even if they didn't understand what I was doing, and even if maybe sometimes they weren't thrilled with what I was writing about, I think that they loved me, and they knew that this was the desire of my heart. Right. And so they were like, go do it, go get it. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to do it, then do it honestly. And my mom and dad's big word is with integrity. Right. So do it with integrity, so that, like, when you do make it, you will have not stepped on any toes. You will have been yourself and have been honest and created work that spoke to who you are as an individual. So I think my parents, and then I think secondly, I have an amazing New York family. Just the people that I've had the pleasure of bumping into and meeting and sort of holding close. Right. I mean, they've seen me through some really dark times in New York, and they've always been there when it's been good as well. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I feel very loved and very supported in my art, and that there's nothing more encouraging than that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Gotta think about it. Resources. I mean, there are good places to go as a playwright. I think you have to go to New Dramatists, which is on 44th, I believe, between 9th and 10th. Mm-hmm. It's an old restored church that is basically a playwright's sanctuary. It is. The walls are filled with plays that have been written by the resident playwrights that are inducted every year. Mm-hmm. Sort of almost, it's a who's who of, like, who's writing in American theater today. Mm-hmm. And it's a great place to just go and chill and read and write and drink coffee. And to meet new, exciting voices and people. Yeah. I did a fellowship there and was just blown away by their kindness and their generosity. So I think that's an excellent place to go resource-wise for as a playwright. I think also, I know it gets expensive, but see as much as you can, and like find ways to get cheap tickets and make friends with people who have access to tickets. I mean, I don't see as much as I would like to see, but I mean, there are also places that do cheaper tickets. I mean, the Public has cheaper tickets, Signature. I mean, different theaters make it easier for you to see things at a reduced rate. So I think see things. And I also think read as much as you can, whether they're plays or the newspaper or fiction or nonfiction. I think the more that you ingest, and the more that you just experience in New York, I think you should be out walking. You should be out watching people. You should see dance, see opera, I just think that all of it just gives you so much more to work with.
Right.
And that's the difference, I think, living in New York City than living like in my hometown of Manhattan, Kansas, which is a beautiful, beautiful place, and I love it. But there's just more stimuli here.
Right.
There just is. And it's not Manhattan, Kansas's fault. But there's just so much to experience here.
Right.
And I think if you come here, you can't sit in your apartment. You just can't do it.
Yeah, I
because
agree.
then you miss out on this wealth that doesn't necessarily even cost money. Just the city itself. I mean, I'm not a terribly good hustler. I'm not like the greatest at sort of, I see the opportunities, but I'm not always the best at sort of going over to them and shaking their hands. So I think that that's something that I've had to grow and learn and to force myself to do. And I feel like over time, I feel like I know a lot of people in New York now, people that I didn't know before. And I think that I can say that I've met them honestly, that I've met them sort of at my own pace and at my own speed. And they've met me where I actually am, as opposed to sort of what I am pretending to be.
Right.
So I feel good about that as well.
That's awesome.
I have a play that's closing tonight here in New York. But that play, I actually can talk sort of, I think that play is probably the best example.
Okay.
That play began with a director friend of mine coming to me and saying, I think you need to write a play about XYZ. And I said, okay, well, what's the story? And he said, I don't know, that's up to you. But like, these are the things that I think should be in it. And literally, we've developed it together over 3 years. And he happened to be a member of a theater company. And they do this thing called the Ladder Reading Series. And they, different artists can come in and pitch ideas. And they say, oh, I'd like to develop this idea over the course of so many weeks or months. And David actually pitched this project to Movement. And they were like, okay, go ahead. We're a little bit interested.
Yeah.
And so with their sort of help and support, we've been able to rewrite and pull in actors that we knew just to read in living rooms. It's been a very informal / formal process. And I think we always thought that we would get to see it eventually, but I don't know that we ever thought it will be 3 years from now.
Yeah.
But I will say that sitting in the theater and watching it, I think back to the very beginning, and it's nothing like I thought it was going to be. And it's sort of a new experience for me to sort of see something all the way from the beginning to an actual production.
Do you think it's important for a writer to have an agent?
Agents are actually something that that I have found very confusing. But I think you can definitely do a lot without an agent. I think that you can meet people and you can get your script in good hands. And I think that without an agent, you can experience a lot of love and support in New York City. Sure. So I don't think that it's a necessity. I do think that, in my very limited experience with an agent, that what is nice is to have somebody else on your team helping you plan your next steps so that you are not the only one responsible for doing all of the managing of your work and potential opportunities. Right. And I will say that is sort of it's amazing. It's amazing to know that, like, when I have a question and I ask a lot of really dumb questions, there's someone to ask. And he's like, just ask me. Like,
Yeah.
just, if you don't know, just ask. And I love that. I love that there's just somebody that I can go to and say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know. I would like to do this or meet this person. Can I maybe do that?
Mm-hmm.
Without me having to, like, stalk the person.
Yes.
Which, it's a new experience.
Uh-huh.
You don't have to, like, find them on Facebook and then, like, find a way to, like, make them like you.
Right.
Like, your agent could contact them. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like I was doing okay without one.
Yeah.
But I'm excited at this juncture in my career
mm-hmm.
for what having an agent might open up for me.
Right.
So, I will also say that I think getting an agent came at a good time for me. I think that I now feel like I have a body of work that is strong and speaks to who I am as a writer and what I want to do. And I feel like several years ago when I thought there was this big need to get an agent, like right out of grad school, I don't think that I had what I needed materials-wise, and I don't think that I knew who I was enough or was solid enough in, like, me as a writer for that relationship to have benefited anyone.
Right.
So I feel like now I just have much more of a sense of self and of my work.
Right.
And I think that is something that makes an agent relationship beneficial.
Sure.
Because they can capitalize on that.
Are there people that have inspired you?
I mean, I get really inspired by talented artists.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go to see a show and I see an actor who I just was like, oh my goodness, they have something.
Yeah.
Then I write them a play.
Mm-hmm.
So like David, my director friend, can come to me and say, I want to play. And he doesn't say, I want to play, but he says, I have an idea. And if it's exciting to me, then I'll be like, great, we've got it.
Right.
Or an actor will say, I've always loved The Seagull. I would really love to do like a cool adaptation of The Seagull, blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, that sounds great, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I'm really inspired by other artists. There are a lot.
Yeah.
I love Dale Orlander Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Her play Yellow Man blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that play is the reason why I love monologue so much. And I think she does monologue like few people do monologue.
Mm-hmm.
I love Tanya Barfield. I loved Blue Door. And I really appreciated The Call as well.
Mm-hmm.
And who else do I love? Christina Anderson. I met Christina Anderson the other day, and she was an incredible human being. And I haven't had the privilege of seeing very much of her work, but she is so intelligent, and I'm sure that she brings that to her work. I'm sure it's complicated and deep. And then I love Katori. I love Dominique Morisseau.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, Marcus Gar, there are so many people, so many good writers of color, working in New York City and in Chicago and on the left. I mean, there's so much good stuff out there right now. I mean, I think it's a very, very exciting time to be in New York and to be writing plays about people of color. I think there's a whole world of plays about people of color being written right now, and I'm excited to see them move to the stages.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time where you just haven't been inspired to write something?
Well, I'm probably not a good person to talk to about writer's block, because when I get writer's block, I just write something else.
Yeah.
So I just start something else. Is really usually how I deal with it. I feel like I'm a push through writer. So I feel like if things aren't coming, then I'll just write crap. And I know that I'll delete it later, but I will just keep writing. I will write the conversations that will never actually be in the play. I will write the back. I will write all of this other stuff. And like some of it might actually turn out to be the turning point for the play.
I think for any artist, there are challenges,
I always go right to my lowest time. I don't know. Let's just go right in.
Yeah.
But when I first moved to New York, actually when I had just started grad school, I had sort of a nasty altercation when I was living in Brooklyn. And it was sort of a physical altercation that sort of was physically damaging to me, but also, I think, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually damaging to me. And it happened right when grad school had started, so I was a bit of a mess. But even though it was a really terrible time, it actually forced me to look at myself and to sort of reevaluate.
Right.
What do you want? Why are you here? To what extent are you willing to sacrifice? And also just to sort of be like, wake up and live your life. And I think that what that low time did for me is it also gave me great material for a play many, many years later. But I also feel like life is one of those things where if you don't have the lows, then the highs don't mean as much.
Yeah.
And I will say that since that low, I can appreciate, like, I can appreciate, boring.
Yeah.
I can appreciate flatline. I'm like, flatline is great. Love that flatline. And then when it boops up, I'm like, yes, that was a mountaintop. You know, so I mean, low times are low, and they're hard, and I've had financial ones, I've had, this physical, I mean, I've had some low times, but I feel like without the low times, you have no perspective.
Right.
And like, if you're a writer or an artist, like, you can use that.
Yeah.
I mean, not that you should force yourself to suffer.
Yeah.
But, like, you can use it.
Okay, speaking of the mountaintop. So, if you, which was a show I enjoyed, but that's not where I'm going with this question. If there were no boundaries, no restrictions, no nothing, when you, close your eyes at night and dream, what would you absolutely love to do with playwriting or in the arts, or, where does that take you?
Well, I think it would be great to write full-time. I mean, that's not the hugest thing, but it would be huge for me. To write full-time would be amazing. Also, I think to write the stories that I'm writing and to not feel like I have to compromise, but not, I write stories largely about people of color. And I find that I write also about sort of people of color who are middle class. So I'm not necessarily writing about, like my work is not Hurt Village, which Victoria Hall, rocked out on.
Yes.
Like my work's not there, but then I'm also not Stick Fly.
Sure.
I'm somewhere in between, and I think that that's like a demographic that we don't see a lot of stories about on the stage, and probably not really on TV either. Even though we exist. I mean, we're living our lives. Right. So I would love to be able to continue to make theater that speaks to that demographic and to who I am.
Right.
And for that to be produced and seen, and not in that slot for that play, but produced because it is a quality play. Right. It is something that America should see. So I don't know. I don't even know that I have huge dreams. I think I just want to do what I love, and I would love for other people to see it and to respond to it. And that doesn't mean everyone has to love it. I want to spark a dialogue. I want to spark a conversation about who we are and where is our place and what can we do and yes. So I just want that dialogue to start. Being in the group is one of my New York dreams come true.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the other writers in my sort of playwriting year they're so amazing.
It's pretty diverse too.
It's amazingly diverse. It's diverse racially and ethnically. It's also diverse sort of where everyone comes from. I mean, we have a hip hop playwright, so he's writing all of his plays are in verse, and it's it's incredible. I don't know how he does it. But verse, and then we have Kyle Warren, who's writing incredibly complicated, heady, and stuff I don't even understand. It's just on a different plane, and yet he's approachable, and his work is approachable. Susan Stanton, who is writing this weird, odd, bizarre, sort of uber sexual, but not. I don't even know what but she's writing this like weird stuff that like makes your skin crawl, but you also sort of like it. So it's like, what are you doing to me? I mean, we are all over the place, and I mean, they all came to see my show. I mean, and we just support each other. I don't know. It's
awesome.
Lovely. It's lovely. Actually, Sweet was inspired by an actor, by my friend Jahan O. Young. And we were in grad school together, actually. And Sweet began as a 10-minute collaborative theater class assignment.
Oh, wow.
And I was assigned 3 actors, and Jahan was one of those actors. And I just saw in her a kindred spirit and someone who I knew, if she was given the right material, would just blow everyone away. And I was like, I'm going to write you Retha. I'm going to write this character for you. And so I wrote this short play, and she was incredible. And then since grad school, I've sort of added to that piece every once in a while, just add a few lines of dialogue. And when I got to the Emerging Writers Group, I thought this is an idea that I really want to finish. I want to take this to completion. And so now it's moved from 10 minutes to a full-length play. Because
the website is called Arts in Color, it would be a shame if I didn't ask you what it means to you to be an artist of color.
Yeah, I mean, when I moved to New York and I'd written my first play, I didn't really think of myself as an artist of color. I mean, I am, but I didn't really think about it, and my work it didn't enter my work consciously. I was of the mind that, like, I should be able to write about whatever I want to write about, with whomever in the cast, and but being in grad school and realizing that there were so few of us in my program, and that, and not that we were ignored, but that just people didn't necessarily know what to do with us all the time, I mean, that's sort of what it was. Yeah. Just didn't know where to put us, how to use us. And seeing that and experiencing that, I thought, no, I'm not down for that. Yeah. I think there are too many talented individuals, actors, directors, that need to be utilized and have something to add, but they have to have the opportunity to add that. Right. So, I mean, my goal, I think, as a writer of color, is to write characters that speak to everyday people of color, and allow them to embody characters that look like them, sound like them, talk like them, instead of having to play. Also, I would say, like, acting-wise, I feel like what I was noticing is that all of my friends were going out for the same one role, when they're all so different. Yes. All of them so different, and none of them that character, but all of them so different. And I was like, why can't they all go out for different roles? Like, why can't they inhabit everybody in that cast? And I guess just wanting to give people that option. I love it. I just want to make more opportunities. Yes. I want to make big casted plays for big casts of lots and lots of people of all shapes and sizes and colors. And yes. Yeah, that's what I want. Yes, I love that. Everyone should get to have that there I am moment. Yeah. And I always tell this story, but I didn't have mine until I saw Passing Strange at the Public. And Daniel Breaker came out playing Youth, and I bawled. I went back and I saw that show like 15 times, and I like cried every time. I stood up for the whole show every time, because I had never experienced that. All right. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you. And I'll see you Wednesday. I'll see you at 7 on Wednesday. All right. Bye. Bye. Bye.